Hello wonderful person, welcome to Stories Quick. Today I will cover a critically acclaimed American mystery thriller titled Prisoners. The movie follows Keller, played by Hugh Jackman, as he lives a parent's worst nightmare when his 6-year-old daughter goes missing. With her life at stake, Keller takes matters into his own hands. The ending has crazy twists, so be sure to watch till the end. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy. The movie begins with Keller Dover, a professional remodel repairman who takes his teenage son Ralph hunting on Thanksgiving morning so he will learn how to provide for himself in any situation. Ralph successfully kills a deer. Keller is playing a religious tape in the truck on the way home. In the next scene, an eerie yellowed RV van drives past the Dovers' modest home. We then see the Dover family, including Keller, Ralph, 6-year-old Dano, and Mom Grace, walk down the street to the Birch's house. We learn that Keller owns his father's old apartment building, and it's abandoned. Now, the Birches, including music teacher Franklin, Mom Nancy, 15-year-old Eliza, and shy 7-year-old Joy greet them, and the families prep for the meal. Anna and Joy go outside to play, with their older siblings trailing behind. The younger girls run up to the old RV, now parked in front of a house with a for sale sign in the yard. They all investigate the van, stunned when the radio comes on inside. They run, a shadow watching them go. Back inside and after the meal, the parents lounge in the living room, having fun. Everyone's drinking, except for Keller. Anna and Joy run in. Anna asks permission for them to go to the Dovers' house, as they want to find Anna's red whistle. Grace says they have to go with their older siblings. The girls run out singing Jingle Bells. The song is something to note for later. Soon after, Keller goes down to the basement, where Ralph and Eliza are boredly watching TV. They don't know where the girls are. So, Keller runs home and searches the house, but the girls aren't there either. Ralph mentions the RV to everyone back at the Birch's home. Franklin, Keller, and Ralph run outside, but the van is gone and for sale house is locked. We then are introduced to Detective Loki as he eats Thanksgiving dinner alone at a Chinese restaurant. In his car, he hears on the police radio that an RV matching the description has been found at a rest stop, and he heads over there. Loki and 2 cops approach the parked van. Suddenly it roars to life and, after a failed escape attempt, crashes into the woods. Through the smoke, Loki finds a terrified 34-year-old Alex Jones huddled in the back and cuffs him. He asks him where the girls are, but a potentially high Alex doesn't reply. Loki pushes him into the woods, but there's nothing and no one there. While Loki interrogates Alex at the police station and forensic guys tear up the van, Loki looks around the backyard of Holly Jones, Alex's aunt. She then takes him through the inside of the house, where Alex has essentially lived since his parents died. The search for the girls continues. The van is clean, and searchers including Keller, Ralph, and Franklin are coming through the woods. The next morning begins the initial aftermath. The parents are in shock. Keller interrogates Loki about Alex, and Loki says that he has the IQ of a 10-year-old and couldn't possibly have pulled a kidnapping off in broad daylight. Keller isn't convinced. Although Loki believes Alex is innocent, he asks his boss, Captain O'Malley, to continue holding him based on Keller's plea. We learn Loki is looking for a transfer, and his boss will give him his blessing if he finds the girls. Next, Loki visits the local sex offenders. The last person he visits is Father Patrick Dunn, who he finds passed out drunk on the floor. Loki takes the opportunity to look around and finds the corpse of a long-dead man in the basement, who Dunn says was a child killer. The corpse has a pendant necklace on. We then pick back up, with Alex being released. Keller arrives furious at the police station and goes for Alex, convinced he's guilty, and eventually manages to tackle him to the ground. Alex reveals to Keller he knows something, but Keller is quickly handcuffed as Alex and his aunt are whisked away. The police captain lets Keller off with a warning. Keller tells Loki what Alex just said to him. Loki agrees to go talk to him, but it isn't enough for Keller. Next, Loki questions Alex at his aunt's house and tries to pressure him into the truth, but Alex denies he said anything. Loki then calls Keller and says they are moving on from Alex as a suspect. Keller hangs up on him. Back home, Grace is freaking out and accuses Keller of not protecting them like he promised. She knocks herself out with Xanax. Ralph is crying and needs his father. Keller, turning off his religious tape, drives over to the Joneses' house, honks outside, and watches. Alex eventually comes out with the dog, and when he begins singing Jingle Bells, Keller gets out of the car and confronts him with a gun. The dog runs off. Afterward, Keller collects a confused Franklin Birch from his house at dawn. Keller drives them to his father's apartment building, now falling apart and boarded over. Alex has been tied to a pipe in the shower. Franklin wants to give him over to the cops, but Keller says he'll just clam up, so they need to hurt him until he talks. Keller begins punching Alex. Loki walks around the lawn of the for sale home as Captain O'Malley tells him there's no ID match on the priest's corpse. Loki then goes to visit the Millans, the owners of the home, who now live elsewhere. Mrs. Millan shows him a video of 6-year-old Barry, who was kidnapped 26 years ago while playing on the for sale home's front lawn. Elliot, her son, takes Loki back over to the house to look around. In the next scene, Franklin and Keller continue to beat up a barely conscious Alex, who still isn't saying anything. Franklin wants to stop, but not Keller. Franklin returns home, sickened by his actions, to a candlelight vigil on the street. Loki is there, watching. His eyes are light on a tall man acting strangely. The man takes off running, and Loki giving chase. After a brief confrontation, the man escapes. Keller pulls up the next morning as Franklin watches a news report about the tall man, the new suspect. At the apartment, they argue, Keller convinced that the tall man and Alex are working together. Later, Loki tells Captain O'Malley that the Joneses' dog was hit by a car and Alex has disappeared. He's not completely convinced Alex is innocent and watches on video his interrogation of Alex at the station. Based on a tip, Loki goes to a discount department store, where he finds out the tall man has been regularly buying children's clothes there. Now, Franklin is crying, broken by what they are doing, but Keller reminds him of the girls, gone 5 days. Back home, Franklin snaps at Nancy, and off-screen she wrangles the truth out of him. Nancy makes them take her to the apartment, and she makes an emotional appeal to a beat-up Alex. She unties him, and he tries to escape out the window, but Franklin and Keller eventually restrain him. Next, Loki questions Father Dunn about his victim's kidnapping methods. We then see Keller as he constructs a cell for Alex out of plywood, and he fetches Nancy and Franklin at 2 AM to show them how it works. He's constructed a basic torture chamber. Franklin wants to let him go. However, Nancy wants to know if he's said anything. Franklin and Keller argue over Alex and what to do. Next, an intruder breaks into the Birches' home as Eliza takes a bath. Franklin and Nancy pull up. They are still discussing how Franklin wants to let Alex out, but Nancy declares they are not going to help or hinder Keller. Inside, Nancy can't find Eliza and panics until Eliza finally comes out in a towel, angry with them for leaving her. The intruder moves onto the Dovers' house. A drugged Grace thinks she hears Anna and goes into her room, where the window is open. She later leads Loki around and brings him down to the basement, where Loki sees some suspicious articles. Grace doesn't know where Keller is, even though it's 3:45 AM. Loki begins tailing Keller. Keller parks near the apartment building and begins walking toward it, but notices Keller going instead into a nearby liquor store. Coming out with a bottle of whiskey, Keller confronts Loki. He explains away his suspicious item's behavior and says he doesn't know where Alex is. Keller seems to be losing hope of finding the girls, and he begins to walk home. A drunk Keller arrives home and finds Grace passed out in bed and passes out himself. He dreams of Anna and wakes up with a start. As an exhausted Loki studies his computer screen, he reads a story about Keller's dad and finds an address. Keller uses the shower water to torture Alex. Hears him saying, "I'm not Alex." Keller is nearly broken himself. Loki arrives and Keller attempts to escape. When he realizes he can't, he pretends he's been sleeping there. He gives a suspicious Loki a tour and is just leading him upstairs when Loki's phone rings. It's the discount department store clerk telling him the tall man has just left. Loki rushes up to the second floor, gives it a quick look. He sees nothing and leaves. Then, in one of my favorite movie scenes, Loki questions Bob Taylor, the tall man, about his behavior. The acting from Jake Gyllenhaal is amazing. Suddenly, he forces his way into Taylor's house and calls in reinforcements, believing the girls might be there. The house is creepy and disgusting. Loki breaks open a locked door and finds tubs filled with bloody children's clothing and live snakes. The last tub contains a homemade book of mazes. Next, we see Franklin and Nancy leave the police station in tears. Loki asks Keller to come in and identify his daughter's clothes. Grace didn't come, but Bob Taylor has apparently confessed to killing the girls. Keller finds Anna's sock and blames Loki for not doing enough. Eliza has told Ralph that the girls are dead, and Keller makes Ralph swear to shield Grace from the news. Keller promises to find Anna, but Ralph accuses him of spending his time drinking. Now Loki and O'Malley watch Bob Taylor draw a maze through a two-way mirror. Loki goes in to question him and gets angry when Taylor won't answer his questions. Two of the other cops come in. Taylor manages to grab one of the guns, and he fatally shoots himself. After that, Nancy goes to the apartment and gives Keller poison to kill Alex with. She says she wants to protect what's left of her family and keep her and Franklin out of jail, but Keller isn't willing to give up hope. Keller drinks whiskey and debates what to do with Nancy's package. He hears Alex say they are in the maze, but he won't say where, just laughs instead. At the police station, O'Malley gives Loki Bob Taylor's bloodied maze drawing. Keller goes to the Joneses' house and acts contrite. Holly allows him to come in. Keller mentions something about a maze, but she doesn't react. Threads begin coming together. Holly's husband kept snakes, and Alex hasn't spoken much since some traumatic childhood incident involving them. Loki is consumed by the map and doesn't hear when O'Malley says he isn't getting promoted. Back in his office, Loki sees that the map matches the pendant the corpse was wearing. Then forensics calls, and he goes over to Bob Taylor's house to find out they've found two kid-sized mannequins buried in the backyard, and that all the blood was from a pig. It turns out Taylor had been kidnapped as a kid and was working it out with all this stuff. The maze is an unsolvable maze from a book, and maybe the girls are still alive. Now we see strife between Nancy and Eliza, and as Ralph talks to Eliza on the phone, he sees Loki poking around their bushes, reminded of something by the forensics guy. Loki finds two footprints and Anna's other sock. Somewhere else, we pick up with the girls and see a drug Joy as she notices the door to her prison is open. The same homemade maze book that Bob Taylor had is on the floor, along with spilled grape aid. She helps Anna stand up and they make it outside, but Anna gets caught. Joy escapes, but terrified of a woman trying to help her, runs into the path of an oncoming van. Back at Keller's home, Grace receives the phone call and tries to get it together. Keller arrives home and she tells him about Joy. At the hospital, they push past a cop to reach Joy's room, and they pepper her with questions, but instead of answering, Joy touches Keller and says he was there. When Keller sees Loki, he bolts. Quick car chase, but the cops lose him. Then Loki arrives. Next we see Holly, Alex aunt, with a nice back on her hand. She opens her front door to find Keller. A bag in hand, he offers to fix up her house as an apology. But in the kitchen, he confronts her about the girls. She produces a gun. She makes him handcuff himself and drink the drug-laden grape aid. She implies she has Anna, and she says that Alex was the first kid she and her husband kidnapped, and his name used to be Jimmy or Barry. They'd also kidnapped Bob Taylor, and they did it after losing religious faith. She forces Keller into a hole in the backyard, but not before shooting him in the thigh. He finds Anna's whistle down there and passes out. Loki wants to find Keller, but O'Malley sends him to notify Holly. As Keller tries to escape from the hole, Loki arrives and Anna wakes up. Keller gets out and Loki is about to leave when he thinks he hears someone crying out. Loki enters the front door while Keller comes in the back. Loki sees a photo of Holly's husband, realizes it's the corpse they found, and he discovers Holly injecting the poison into Anna's arm. She shoots Loki, hitting him just over the eye, and Loki shoots her dead. Bleeding, Loki drives furiously through the falling snow, trying to get Anna to help on time. She's convulsing as they reach the hospital. Loki reads a newspaper from his hospital bed. It reveals Alex, who we now know is actually Barry Milland, the original missing boy, has been reunited with his family. Keller is still missing though. After that, we see Grace wheeling Anna in. She has a new whistle. Nancy and Joy come in too, and Loki sees guilt in Nancy's eyes and darkness in Joy's. Nancy takes the girls out and sees Franklin in the hall. He's conflicted and, without a word, heads toward a nearby cop. Grace talks to Loki privately and swears she hasn't heard from Keller. Loki says he'll find him. He says he'll probably go to jail, but Grace says he's a good man, protecting his family. Two techs work in the backyard of the Joneses' house. Loki arrives, and the cops say the ground's too frozen to do much. They leave, and Loki stands alone in the quiet and dark. He's just leaving when he hears something faint. It's a whistle. That is the end of the movie. The end of the movie implies that Loki heard Keller whistling from his underground prison and will rescue him. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more.